Hello, everyone, and welcome to your second Math 4 lesson. We're going to be going over domain and range of graphs specifically, since our first unit is going to be focused on graphs and interpreting them and understanding them. We will be building off what we talked about yesterday, or not yesterday, the previous lesson, with the different notations. But before that, we should talk about what domain and range is. A lot of you hopefully remember that domain stands for the x values and the range stands for the y values. But even then, I think a lot of people tend to forget what these two words mean. It's very easy to forget if it's not something you're focusing on. So what I'm thinking to do is I would teach you guys a really easy way to remember which one is which in a song. Yeah, that's right. You guys are getting a song in your second lesson. So first off, if you guys ever heard the song Home on the Range, home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play. Don't judge my singing, guys. Math teacher, not a pop star. So we're going to use that song to remember domain being x values and range being y values. And it goes like this. Y is the range, and x is the domain. All right, try and sing along with me this time, guys. It's very cheesy, but easy way to remember which is which. Y is the range, and x is the domain. And to represent the x values and y values of graphs, we're going to be using the notation that we talked about in the previous lesson: inequality, set notation, interval notation. You only need to master one of those, but you do need to know how to interpret all of them. So let's go ahead and see an example right here. Here's a graph, looks a bit wonky. You could tell that it's a finite graph because it starts here and it stops here. Remember, domain represents what goes left and right, and domain represents what goes up and down. So let's just start from the top, all right? Let's start with domain. We notice how domain represents the left and right because that's the x values. It starts right here and it continues onwards, and the farthest it can get to the right is right here. So it starts at -5 and ends in 5. So you can actually start it right here. So this is interval notation, where it starts at -5 and it includes -5 because it's a closed circle, and it continues to 5 with a open circle. Now, if you don't like interval notation, you could also try representing it as an inequality right here, where x is greater than or equal to -5 and less than 5. These mean the same thing. Feel free to use either one. You could also use set notation. I'll give you an example of that with the range, okay? So for range, let's get rid of this pink stuff right here. Range represents the y-axis, and that's up and down. So take a look. Notice how the highest point is right here at 2. Notice the lowest point of this graph is right here at -2. So we know the range goes from -2 to 2. It doesn't include -2, but it goes all the way up to 2. So that's there for interval notation. And then for set notation, remember, range is y values. So we're going to say for all y values here, y is greater than -2 and y is less than or equal to 2. It's kind of hard to picture sometimes because domain and range are one-dimensional and we're dealing with a two-dimensional graph. So try doing what I'm doing right here. I'm just focusing on, for range, it's highest and lowest. For domain, it's left and right. Let's do one more example. So here's example 2. This is a picture of a graph. That should be a bit familiar to you. It's a quadratic function. We're going to do the exact same thing. We'll look at the domain and then the range. So the domain, remember, goes all the way to the left and to the right. But notice how the left and the right have these arrows here. They're going to keep on going even though this graph stops there. So we could say that the lowest point is actually -infinity and the highest point is +infinity. So you could say that here, or instead of even saying an inequality, we could just say it's all real numbers because it'll go on forever to the left and to the right. So that's a bit strange, right? Then for range, range is the highest point and the lowest point. So here's our lowest point, which is right at 0. And the highest point is up here for both of these. And they go on to infinity. So notice how the range starts at 0, that's the lowest point, and it goes up to positive infinity. Or if we want to represent as inequality, we can just say y is greater than or equal to 0 because we include 0. And that's all you guys can really do for the other part of the next lesson is representing range and domain as intervals. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to email me about it or just save them for the next class. Make sure you guys do those practice problems to get your credit for this. Otherwise, you have a great day. Bye.